Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. Star Citizen 4.3 is set to go live today. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Cannot do this without you guys. It is truly appreciated. So Star Citizen Alpha 4.3 is slated to release to live sometime today. But what does this patch bring to the persistent universe, and what is being done to fix issues like freight elevators? Well, firstly, yesterday's Inside Star Citizen began by delving into the issues that cropped up with 4.2.1 regarding these freight elevators, explaining what Cloud Imperium have already done and what they are continuing to do to sort this major issue out. Now, as suspected, the freight elevator issues arose due to many reasons, but one of the main contributors was the increased traffic to locations like outposts, as these elevators were clearly not set up to handle such a vast amount of player footfall, which was a big shame, of course, and you can argue that they should have had them ready for this, but thankfully an event like this has massively highlighted these issues and provided a ton of data, and Cloud Imperium are now, and have been for a while it sounds, working to sort them out. In fact, they did say that the freight elevator issue is not just one issue, and since the release of 4.2.1, they have identified the root causes of 44 individual issues, with 20 of them being classified as blockers or critical, which is pretty crazy. Usually, if there is a single blocker or even a critical, a patch won't release. So the fact that they have found 20 blockers and critical issues really tells you why it was such a problem. Now, Jared did say that months ago they kicked off an initiative to repair the freight elevators, and it is still to be completed. But one change up this year in comparison to other years is to avoid sort of hack fixes, as they put it, and focus more on finding root causes and fixing those. They are no longer doing just general hacking of these issues, and they are taking a little longer to fix the root cause, which ultimately is far more beneficial in the long term, but not so much in the immediate. Now, my opinion on the whole event is, as much as I would have wished it to be flawless and everything working as it should, as I'm sure everyone would agree, while we are playing this work in progress alpha, I certainly do not expect things to be perfect. Of course, even if it was slightly working, that would have been way better than what we actually got. But one of the biggest issues of having events like this, especially when they don't work as intended, is it really highlights at scale and in detail, where data is concerned anyway, where these issues are, and gives Cloud Imperium the information they need to do a proper fix. Now, as a very active player myself, and my org even more active than I am, I would of course have preferred things to have been better, but I am a firm believer in fixing the cause and not just masking the symptoms, especially with where we are now in development, where systems are more robust or being converted into more robust systems, so hotfixing or just band-aiding is not something that is beneficial anymore. Now, 4.2.1's event began as a big failure, but has become better and better over time, and hopefully many of the fixes coming into 4.3 will actually have the event and freight elevators and missions working as intended upon its release. But regardless, as I say, the data and the information Cloud Imperium gather is priceless in getting Star Citizen's persistent universe to where it needs to be before 1.0. This alpha is when we want these problems to appear, not later down the line when Star Citizen is about to release or has released. These need to be seen now, and that is one of the beauties of this alpha, being able to play it now. It makes it difficult for us, the players, but in all honesty, we are glorified QA testers. Now anyway, another thing that was briefly mentioned was regarding long-term persistence. There will be a dedicated Star Citizen Live with Benoit soon, as we have been told recently, hopefully it's next week, in which they will speak about the progress, I assume, of dynamic meshing, server meshing, VoIP and FOIP updates that we have been told about, and some new developments for long-term persistence, which I am really interested in hearing about. Hopefully it'll mean that there is a fix to stop items that we buy or scavenge in-game from disappearing, like ship components, weapons, ships even. Really excited to see this episode, and hopefully it is next week, as there is a lot of really important stuff to be addressed there. Anyway, let's get on and check out this patch watch to see what 4.3 has to offer. Now, as stated, it was set to release last night, but they mentioned early in the morning that they are currently aiming to get some further fixes onto the PTU overnight that are fully needed due to their severity. And they will reevaluate the potential release of 4.3 on Friday morning after testing fixes overnight on the PTU. Now, I assume we are talking US time here in terms of Friday morning, but it still looks like 4.3 is on the cards for releasing today. If you're in the UK like I am, potentially it'll be Friday afternoon or even in the evening sometime, depending on how these fixes go. Now, in regards to the resource drive event, due to these, well, mostly the freight elevator issues, they are extending the event throughout 4.3, with Jared even stating another month, so it could indicate that 4.3.1 is set to release within a month's time, or at the end of August, early September. Obviously take that with a grain of salt. It isn't a promise, it isn't a set date, it was just more of an off-the-cuff comment. But this means that for those of you who haven't been able to get enough done due to the bugs, you have more time. As well as 4.3 will be bringing and continuing to bring more and more fixes for the freight elevators and other problems. This means that if you are playing 4.2.1 and you have any resource drive SEU, so corundrum, copper, tungsten, if you've been storing them, my advice is to get them banked in as soon as possible with whatever corp you want to cash in with before 4.3 releases, as the likelihood is they will get wiped with the patch release. So you may only have a few hours to get them cashed in. If you can't get them done yourself, give them to somebody else, get rid, because the chances are they will get wiped. Anyway, let us finally get onto this patch watch and see what 4.3 is bringing. Firstly, we have dynamic snow, and as Jared mentions, these weather iterations will continue to develop in both gameplay and audio and visuals over subsequent releases. Now, very happy to hear him say this. It isn't just going to be here's rain and now snow, and then nothing for a while. They will continue to release more and more as each patch comes along to expand on the weather types and of course improve what we have both visually and audibly. And hopefully by the end of the year, weather will be pretty varied and very interesting and impact gameplay in many ways as well. For example, requiring players to approach on foot or in a ground vehicle rather than just being able to fly our ships in. Next up, we have this patch's latest new armor set, being the Geist Light Stealth Armor, with quite a few variations. I particularly like the ASD version with the hood, but the plain styles look nice as well. Not sure how much the stealth is going to matter at this time before we get Starware in and the radars and scanners, or updated FPS radars and scanners, but it's still a cool outfit. There is also another new Vault edition, being the Zenith Sniper Rifle. Now, apparently this will have the raw punch of a charged sniper shot with the rapid fire precision of a marksman rifle, but the trade-offs are it is noisy, which again won't mean anything too much until we get things like radars and scanners, although you can hear them, of course, so it does give them away, but it also can overheat if not managed correctly. Now, I do like how they are creating this range of trade-offs in weapons, just like we see with ships, for example, just to give each player a choice to suit their style or the situation at hand. Whether it is overpowered or underpowered is yet to be seen, and will of course be adjusted throughout Star Citizen's development, like with any asset we see, but it's great to see more sci-fi style weaponry, and I think the Vault LMG might be the next weapon coming in 4.3. Now, one very nice new quality of life addition is finally the ability to spawn directly into our hangars for the first initial spawn. Now, this was attempted back when I think it was 4.0 released, but it didn't make it to live. This time, with a recent update, it said in the monthly report, it is now possible and looks to be staying. So very pleased to see this, and as Jared said, personal hangars are becoming the first true homes in the verse, and this is another step to making it a reality. Also, Jared did mention that they are finding time to prioritize getting the ability for us to spawn ground vehicles and freight elevators into the schedule after a couple of months more fixes to freight elevators. So, excellent news, but my goodness, Jared, please do not tease stuff like this the way you did. I almost spat out my coffee with how he delivered that information, damn it. Now, for Wicklow, they have added more new vehicles and items. They have also updated many in-game ship dealers with a lot of the latest released ships, and he says going forwards that they will actively be pushing to get more of the base versions of newer released ships out into in-game ship shops at an increased turnaround time from now on, so no longer taking months and months before a ship that was released for real money becomes purchasable in-game, which is absolutely 100% how it should be. So very happy they're going to have a not necessarily set turnaround time, but a much more increased turnaround time so that we can actually buy these vehicles in-game. Now, another continued update is the ship flight tuning. Now, this is not the big flight mechanic updates that we've been hearing about that are in the works, but continued tuning and balancing of the various ship classes. This time for 4.3, it is light fighters, with each light fighter having adjustments to increase the range between each ship for areas like speed, maneuverability, health points, and so much more. Now, this, I assume, is preliminary work, setting a new baseline with a lot more variations for getting the larger flight mechanic updates in, and many of these vehicles have not been touched for years. Now, this doesn't mean they're including things like physical components, it's not the gold standard pass, it is just tuning and balancing and tweaking of their values, but many of them have been desperate for any form of love. Now, also for 4.3, the latest vehicle is this debut from Kruger, their first dedicated ship anyway, being the L-21 Wolf. Now, this is actually priced pretty reasonably. It's around $100, which, when I say reasonable, I mean in terms of where it actually falls compared to ships like the Gladius. It looks gorgeous, barring that fin. It looks like a really nice classic car with bespoke Gatlins. I will certainly be checking this out and putting it through its paces, but I have no idea if it is the ship for me, and again, like with any asset we get, it'll need tuning. I will also be doing a dedicated video where I try it out and see how it performs. But do let me know your thoughts on the Wolf. I may CCU my Nomad to it, because that's only going to be like $20, so we'll see. And then finally, Alpha 4.3's narrative content for this patch is involving these new abandoned Onyx facilities. These are to be used for 4.3 and subsequent patches, as it will be the first of a multi-part story development, with more internal wings opening up, sending players deeper into the facility throughout the year. And as they say, it is not just worm torture that is going on here by the Doctor, there's more to it. So really interesting to see what comes from these locations. I hope, and somewhat expect, it will culminate in the reveal of a brand new creature. It could be referring to the creature boss fight that we have read about in the monthly report. Personally, I would just settle with a good old xenomorph, something that can chase you down the corridors, that looks horrific and is very scary, is a creature that I am very much looking forward to meeting in the verse. But there you go, that is the 4.3 patch watch, set to release sometime today, all being well. Of course, if whatever fixes they're trying to get in do not work, they may hold it off till next week. But it was set to come last night, it's now set to come sometime today. For me, I am very happy to see that they are heavily tackling these freight elevator issues, bringing the ability to purchase vehicles in-game quicker, post-release of a new vehicle, hangar spawning, new weather updates, and continuing to bring more throughout the year, fast-tracking the ability to spawn ground vehicles and freight elevators as well, but also Star Citizen Live with Benoit talking about all things meshing, long-term persistence, VoIP. Not to mention, we are less than a couple of months away from CitizenCon Direct, where I'm sure we'll check in with a lot of the ongoing development. Now, as I say, when it comes to the alpha, for me, I take it or leave it depending on how well each patch plays. Of late, aside from these damn freight elevators, I have been having a blast, especially with my org, and I hope to find a little bit more time to jump in and play more consistently, also bring more gameplay content to the channel. Hopefully I can get that sorted. But with that said though, I will be covering the roadmap update in a dedicated video soon, as there are some very interesting new additions, like the ability for the Caterpillar to detach its command module, which will also be needed for the Ironclad. Plus, I am working through the roadmap, getting that update covered here as well. With that said, if you are interested in using your phone or tablet as your ship's dashboard, do check out GameGlass. It is a free-to-use app where you can get up to 3 free shards, including this really cool Aegis one. If you want to unlock more shards like the Drake one, and over time other manufacturers as well, I can get you 10% off an annual or monthly pass, or if you go for a lifetime pass, 15% off. Using that link will get you that discount, plus it will provide my channel with a direct kickback, helping to support my videos like this one. Big thank you to everyone who has done so already, it is much appreciated. And if you do enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing. Also, I will be live later today, most likely playing 4.2.1. It really depends on when 4.3 drops. We have plans for both, but ultimately it could happen right in the middle of the stream. We just don't know. But you are all more than welcome, whether you are brand new to the game or a veteran. It is always a pleasure to hang out and chat about Star Citizen, even if we can't play it at times. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind, it does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you'd like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.